All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today we are exploring a really beautifully mysterious concept: the idea that our deepest flaws, our messy edges, might actually be our greatest strengths. We're going to look at personal development through the lens of this ancient Japanese philosophy called Wabi Sabi, and we'll discover how totally embracing life's natural imperfections can fundamentally change how we live and, honestly, how we heal.
So, to really wrap our heads around this, we gotta step back in time, 16th century. Picture a young boy named Sen no Rikyu. He's desperate to learn the art of the Japanese tea ceremony from a legendary master. Well, as a test, the master tells him to clean the tea garden. So Rikyu meticulously cleans and rakes this garden until it is literally absolutely flawless. But right before he shows this pristine space to his master, he walks over to a cherry tree and just gently shakes it. A few sakura flowers fall, dotting that perfectly raked ground with completely random, natural imperfection. With that one intentional act, Rikyū essentially birthed the aesthetic of wabi-sabi. He proved that true beauty isn't found in the sterile flawlessness, but in a touch of raw, unedited nature. And man, this just brilliantly illustrates the core tension of our lives. It's captured perfectly by Shunyu Suzuki. Everything is perfect, and yet there's always room for improvement. It's a paradox, right? We are complete and whole exactly as we are in this moment, and yet we're also constantly growing, shifting, and taking on the wear and tear of real life. Let's actually break these words down. Wabi basically translates to a subdued, austere beauty, while Sabi refers to a rustic patina, the physical mark of time. When you merge those together, you get a worldview that actively celebrates the passage of time. It's all about focusing on rustic simplicity and really honoring the inherent flaws that come with natural wear. Think of, say, a wooden table covered in scratches from years of family dinners, or a slightly faded, incredibly well-loved rug. Now, this philosophy didn't just come out of nowhere. It's deeply rooted in Zen Buddhism, specifically something called the Samboen, or the three marks of existence. Those are impermanence, suffering, and emptiness. So rather than trying to force the physical world into this unnatural, perfectly static state, Wabi-Sabi says no. Asymmetry, roughness, the natural forces of decay, those are actually superior, authentic qualities. It's this profound acceptance that nothing lasts, nothing is finished, and absolutely nothing is perfect. Section 1. Breaking the Perfection Trap. Let's fast forward to the modern world and examine the psychological friction we run into when we try to do the exact opposite, when we obsess over absolute flawlessness. Consider this contrast because it is fascinating. First, you've got the Diderot Effect. This is basically an exhausting consumerist trap driven by our psychological need for everything to match perfectly, what they call compulsive coherence. Imagine you buy one flawless modern designer chair. Bam! Suddenly, your old rug looks completely out of place, right? It's an aesthetic incongruity. So you buy a new rug. But then the coffee table looks weird. You end up in this compounding cascade of purchases trying to build a perfectly matched ecosystem, and your home basically becomes a rigid, dead museum of an imagined perfect self. But then you have the antidote, the transitional space. By applying a wabi-sabi mindset, we actually allow for imperfection. We let grandma's old worn-out armchair vibe right next to a modern laptop. This space becomes a living, mismatched, truly authentic area for playful self-expression. It completely frees us from that endless spiral of constantly upgrading. In this perfection trap, it doesn't just drain our wallets. It literally destroys our personal goals. Think about this for a second. An astonishing 89% of New Year's resolutions fail. 89%. Why? Because we apply that exact same rigid all-or-nothing Diderot mentality to our personal development. We say, I'm going to work out 5 days a week. We miss one single day, the perfect streak is ruined, and instead of just recalibrating, what do? We completely throw in the towel. We abandon the whole routine because it's no longer flawless. Section 2. Kintsugi for the soul. Let's look at a fascinating application of these ideas and see how this builds into an actual framework for emotional healing. So what happens when our lives break? It's a heavy question for sure, but a crucial one. How do you handle your own inevitable traumas, accidents, or those moments when you are just profoundly vulnerable? Because normally, when our plans shatter, our first instinct is to frantically sweep up the pieces and hide the damage so nobody even knows we were broken in the first place. That the Japanese gave us this breathtaking alternative. It's called kintsugi, which literally means golden joinery. Back in the 15th century, a shogun named Ashikaga Yoshimasa broke his absolute favorite teacup.
When the artisans repaired it, they didn't try to hide the cracks at all. Instead, they used urushi lacquer mixed with powdered gold to piece it back together. They intentionally illuminated the fractures. The repair itself became the most prominent feature, making that cup infinitely more unique and valuable precisely because it had been broken.
And what's amazing is how modern psychology actually maps this concept out using the stereotype content model of trust repair. When something breaks, we evaluate its repair on two different pathways. You have the warmth pathway, which represents intent and empathy. By dedicating time and literal precious gold to a broken object, we are honoring its sentimental history. And complementing that emotional side is the competence pathway, representing utility. Get this, the traditional urushi lacquer actually creates a structural joint that is fundamentally stronger than the original clay. So, kintsugi doesn't just make things look pretty, it simultaneously restores our deep empathy for the scars while actually enhancing functional strength. And this isn't just some nice art metaphor anymore, it is a clinical practice. Practitioners are using kintsugi cognitive therapy to help people navigate PTSD, ADHD, and severe burnout through a three-phase process. Step 1, bring the pieces together. This is where you actually accept your fragility and cognitively process the trauma rather than burying it. Step 2, lay the gold. Here, patients learn to valorize their scars, building the emotional discipline to turn adversity into real growth. And step 3, lacquer the joint. This is all about fostering resilience, what clinicians call staying power, building sustainable habits for long-term well-being. It's literally treating your mind like that beautifully golden joint teacup. Section 3, the imperfect journey. All right, let's tie all of this together and see how we can practically apply this ancient wisdom to our daily, messy, inherently flawed lives.
I love how organizational psychologist Adam Grant frames this. He calls Wabi Sabi a character skill. See, embracing imperfection isn't about giving up or just settling for mediocrity. Not at all. It requires immense discipline to stop obsessing over impossible, static ideals. Instead, you intentionally shift your focus to achievable, authentic standards, and you give yourself the grace to dynamically adjust those standards over time as you naturally grow and change. So, here are 8 highly actionable Wabi-Sabi principles you can literally start applying to your personal growth right now. Let's just highlight a few key ones. First, embrace imperfection. Realize that progress beats perfection every single time. A setback doesn't diminish your value. Second, keep it simple. Ditch that massive list of overwhelming resolutions and just focus on a few meaningful goals. And appreciate the process. Celebrate the tiny victories and the messy lessons you learn along the way. Remember, vulnerability is not a flaw. Your problems, they are just pathways to inner growth.
I want to wrap up with this incredibly provocative thought from the source material. It's not about where you go, it's about how far you travel. As you tackle your goals, whether you're running a marathon, building a business, or just trying to heal day by day, stop hiding your cracks. Look at your emotional scars not as brokenness or failure, but as your own beautiful, completely unique golden joinery. So I'll leave you with this to ponder. What broken pieces of your own life are just waiting for their gold?